My name's Matt. I'm 43. I live in Austin, Texas, and for the last 10 years, I've been the invisible spine of a house that doesn't know my name. Kelly and I married 9 years ago. She came with 2 kids. Jake was 9, Madison 7. Their dad, Tom, was already just a ghost with a smile. He'd show up for Christmas Eve pictures or a birthday card that arrived 2 weeks late, then disappear into whatever bar or weekend girlfriend came next. But the lights stayed on. Groceries filled the fridge. Insurance paid out when Jake broke his arm trying to skateboard off the garage roof. That wasn't magic. That was me. Every morning before work, I'd make coffee for Kelly, pack lunches for the kids, check homework. Every evening, I was the one walking through the door with takeout when practice ran late, or driving Madison to piano lessons in the rain. I never used the word sacrifice. I thought love meant filling the gaps without reminding people there were gaps. I didn't want applause. I wanted connection. I wanted the long game, the quiet trust that builds when you show up for people who don't owe you anything. Because that's what step-parenting is. Building a bridge with no blueprint, one plank at a time, and hoping one day they cross back. I took them to the dentist, to urgent care, to dance recitals and band competitions. I took off work when Madison got the flu and sat next to Jake's bed after he failed algebra and sobbed like his world had ended. I wasn't their dad, but I was the one who stayed. And for a long time, it looked like that counted for something. Jake used to call me Matt Dad. A joke, maybe, but it had warmth to it. Madison would draw pictures with all 4 of us. I'd be there, lopsided and smiling, next to their mom, next to their real dad, like we were some awkward family truce drawn in crayon. There was even a Christmas when Jake, 10 years old, saved up his allowance to buy me a new tool belt. For all the stuff you fix, he said, I still have it, still wear it. But time wears things down, and love, unacknowledged, begins to calcify. About 6 months ago, the tone changed. Jake started hanging out with this group of boys who had no leash, no limits. You know the type, half-baked stubble, vaping in the school parking lot, laughing too loud at things that don't deserve laughter. They rolled through our driveway like they owned it. Loud music. Empty soda cans tossed in the bushes. I said nothing at first. Kelly said they were just boys being boys. Jake changed fast. Suddenly I wasn't Matt Dad. I was him, or worse, nothing at all. I'd ask a question and he'd grunt. I'd suggest something and he'd sneer. His room became a cave of silence and hostility. And the car I bought him, a used Ford Fusion, solid, dependable, suddenly wasn't good enough. Why can't I get something decent? Tom said he'd co-sign for a Mustang. Tom, the ghost. I started finding empty beer cans under the passenger seat. Vape cartridges in the glove box. When I confronted him, he shrugged. Everyone does it. Madison followed suit, in her own quieter way. More eye rolls. More silence. Once, when I reminded her to text if she was going to be late, she muttered, "You're not my dad. Stop pretending." That one stung. Not because it was new, but because she didn't even look up when she said it. I tried talking to Kelly. "They're teenagers," she said. "This is normal. Is it normal to feel like a ghost in your own home?" She looked up from her phone, blinked, said nothing, and then, it wasn't silence anymore. It was contempt. One night, after dinner, I heard them laughing in the living room. I paused in the hallway, out of sight. Jake was showing Madison something on his phone. "Look what Tom posted. Us at that steakhouse. Hashtag, my real ones." Madison laughed. "He doesn't even know your birthday." Jake grinned. "Yeah. But at least he doesn't act like he owns us." Madison, "Unlike someone." And Kelly? She was sitting right there, on the couch, scrolling, smiling faintly, like none of it meant anything. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, counting its slow revolutions like a clock ticking down to some truth I didn't want to admit. I was a paycheck, a driver, a warm body who filled a chair at the dinner table. And the kids I had built a life around didn't even see me anymore. But it wasn't just the kids. That's what made it worse. Kelly had always been a quiet partner. Not cold, just passive. Passive to a fault. She let things roll off her like rain. Her default mode was to not get involved. But lately, that detachment started to feel like betrayal. I'd bring up the way Jake spoke to me. She'd shrug. I'd mention how Madison hadn't said a full sentence to me in days. She'd offer a soft smile. Tell me to give it time. Time. As if 10 years wasn't enough. I noticed how often she took their side, even in small things. Jake wouldn't do his chores, and she'd say, "He's tired." Madison would leave her dishes in the sink, and Kelly would wash them silently, never asking her to lift a finger. I'd bring it up, she'd change the subject. Then came the whispers. I started hearing things I was never meant to hear. Jake on speakerphone in his room, laughing with friends. Yeah, he pays for everything. Car, insurance, school trips, whatever. But he doesn't own it. None of it. It's all ours in the end. Laughter. Then Madison. He acts like he's in charge, but he's not even family. Just a guy who moved in. Just a guy. It wasn't the words themselves. It was the certainty in them. The casual cruelty. The confidence that nothing I did mattered because I wasn't blood. And Kelly? She'd hear it too. I knew she did. But she never corrected them. Never stopped them mid-sentence. Never said, "That's enough." I was the one who paid the bills. Fixed the broken furnace. Shoveled the driveway. Co-signed the school loans. Sat through every boring parent-teacher night while their real father was off pretending to be a cool uncle on Instagram. But inside these walls I was a ghost. A wallet with a heartbeat. There was a Sunday morning, late spring, when Kelly, Jake, and Madison were on the patio drinking coffee. I came out and said good morning. Jake didn't look up. Madison took a sip and muttered, "He's always around." Kelly smiled. Not at me. Just smiled. Like it was a shared joke. I stood there for a long moment. The sunlight hit me hard, but I felt cold. I turned around, walked inside, and shut the door. I realized then what I'd been refusing to say out loud. This wasn't my family. Not really. Not anymore. The line got crossed on a Thursday night. Funny how it wasn't dramatic. No screaming. No fight. Just one sentence. Sharp enough to sever 10 years of patience in half. Jake had asked for the car keys. It was nearly 10 p.m. Insurance on the Ford had lapsed, my fault, technically. I delayed the payment by a few days after a rough month. Jake wanted to drive across town for a party. I said no. He stood in the hallway, barefoot, arms crossed like a defiant shadow. "It's not a big deal. You're being paranoid." I kept my voice even. "You're not insured, Jake. You wrecked that car, it's my name on the hook." He laughed. Not a chuckle. A dismissive, bitter bark of disbelief. "You're lucky we even tolerate you." Then he walked off. No apology. No look back. Just slammed his bedroom door with the full confidence of someone who believed I was irrelevant. I stood there for a long while. I could still hear the music from his room, the thud of bass like a second heartbeat in the walls. My mouth was dry. My hands weren't shaking. They were still. Too still. Tolerate me. That was the moment I realized what I was to them. Not a father. Not a mentor. Not even a roommate. I was an intruder they'd grown accustomed to ignoring. And when I was useful, when the fridge was full, when the car was gassed up, when tuition checks cleared, I was just fine enough to tolerate. I went to bed that night without a word. Kelly didn't ask how the conversation went. She never did anymore. And I might have left it there, stewing, burying that insult like I'd buried 100 others. But the universe didn't let me. At 12:47 a.m. I walked past Jake's room on the way to the kitchen. His door was cracked. I paused. Not intentionally. Just something made me stop. Maybe the glow of the screen. Maybe the sound of voices. He was on speakerphone. Yeah, he said no. Can you believe that? Acts like it's his damn house. I swear, man, he doesn't own it. He just pays for it. It's all ours in the end. Then laughter. A girl's voice. Is he like your step guy or something? Jake again. He's nobody. Just the ATM that moved in. I didn't flinch. Didn't burst in. Didn't shout. I just turned and walked away. Back to the kitchen. Made a cup of black coffee I didn't need. Sat at the dining table while the steam rose into the dark. I wasn't angry. That was the strangest part. I was clear, cold, still. That night I slept the full night through, the first time in months. And when I woke, I moved. I didn't warn them, didn't hint. I acted. First, I logged into our shared banking accounts. Froze every card with my name on it, groceries, gas, utilities, subscriptions. Anything that touched my funds stopped moving. I canceled automatic transfers to Madison's extracurriculars, to Jake's school meal plan. I closed the Amazon account, changed the Wi-Fi password. Then I printed out the Ford's title. It had always been in my name. From the day I bought it. A surprise for Jake's 16th birthday. I'd made sure it was legally mine. Everyone had scoffed at the time. It's his car. Why's your name on it? Now they'd find out why. I drove to the dealership where I'd purchased it. Told them I was looking to sell. Low mileage. Clean interior. They offered me fair market, nothing special, but enough. I signed the papers. Collected the check. But I didn't stop there. The final move was across town, 20 minutes in traffic, to a worn-down duplex with peeling paint and a sagging fence. Tom's place. Jake's biological father. The one who showed up twice a year with novelty socks and Instagram captions like, #BestDadEver. I parked out front. Knocked on the door. Tom answered in basketball shorts and a tank top, hair tousled like he'd just rolled out of bed, which he probably had. Noon on a Friday. His eyes widened when he saw me. Matt? I held out the title. This is Jake's car now, I said. You deal with it. He blinked. What? I sold it. Here's the paperwork. The car's paid off. Yours to handle now, maintenance, gas, insurance. All of it. He squinted like I was speaking a foreign language. I don't even have space for it. Sounds like a personal problem. I carried this load long enough. He looked past me as if expecting a punchline. Is this a joke? I turned, walked back to my truck. Tell Jake to call you next time he needs a ride. Back home, the house was quiet. Kelly was at work. Madison still at school. Jake, I assumed, was sleeping off whatever party he'd managed to sneak to anyway. I sat at the kitchen table again. Drank the rest of the cold coffee. And waited. Took 2 days. 2 days for the silence to break. Saturday morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. Then another call. This time a text. From Jake. Matt, what's going on? Dad says I have to pay for my own gas. He doesn't even have Wi-Fi. All the cards are shut off. Why? That last part, why, made me laugh. Short, sharp, almost bitter. As if the why wasn't carved into every ungrateful word they'd hurled at me for months. An hour later, Madison texted too. I didn't want things to go this far. Can we talk? No emoji. No attitude. Just that. Kelly came home late that evening. Said nothing at first. We passed each other like fog. Then, I noticed the cards aren't working. I nodded. They're not. Silence. She opened the fridge. Closed it again. Then quietly, I see it now. I should have spoken up sooner. I let this go too far. I didn't say anything right away. Then, this isn't about saying sorry. It's about showing respect. Until that happens, this house stays closed. She didn't argue. Just stood there, hand still resting on the fridge handle, eyes distant. It was a strange kind of quiet. Not angry, just still. Like something had finally landed. Something none of us could unhear. That night, I sat outside on the porch. Alone. Watched the neighborhood carry on like nothing had happened. Dogs barking, lawn sprinklers ticking, kids riding bikes down the sidewalk. And I thought about all the years I'd spent building something that was never mine. Trying to be the architect of a home that saw me as scaffolding, useful but always temporary. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't slammed a door. I had simply walked away from the fire I'd been feeding alone. 2 days. That's how long it took for the silence to start unraveling. The first sign came quietly. A buzz on my phone while I was outside trimming the hedges. I ignored it. Then another. then 2 more in a row. Notifications stacked up like missed alarms. One from Jake. One from Madison. One from Kelly. I didn't open any of them. I didn't need to, because once you stop feeding a machine, the gears begin to seize. And nothing makes a child realize the weight of consequence faster than watching the ground beneath them crack. Jake's message was short. Matt, Dad says I have to pay for my own gas. He doesn't even have Wi-Fi. And why are all the cards off? The shift in tone was immediate. No more swagger. No more mockery. Just confusion, maybe a little fear, buried in those sentences. An hour later, Madison texted too. I didn't want things to go this far. Can we talk? It was the first sentence she'd sent me in weeks that didn't drip with disdain. But I didn't answer either of them. Because I had nothing left to give. Not an explanation, not reassurance, not comfort. They had chosen their reality. Now they could live in it. Kelly broke the silence later that evening. We were both in the kitchen. She opened the fridge, then shut it again like she had a question she couldn't frame. Her eyes scanned the empty space where the groceries usually lived. You froze everything. It wasn't a question. I nodded. Correct. She swallowed hard. You sold the car. Yes. Silence stretched between us like an ocean. I see it now, she said finally, voice brittle. I should have said something a long time ago. I let this go too far. I didn't move, didn't blink. You watched them cut me down, and you smiled. Her jaw tightened. I didn't think it was that serious. It wasn't serious when they told me I wasn't family, when they called me the ATM that moved in. Her head dropped. I wasn't there for that. No, but you were there for the silence that followed. She didn't answer. That night, I didn't sit at the table. I didn't cook dinner. I didn't watch TV. I simply went upstairs, shut the door, and sat in the quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't soothe, but confirms. The next day, the doorbell rang. I didn't rush to answer it. Just opened it slowly, expecting another Amazon package I hadn't ordered. But it wasn't a delivery. It was Jake. And behind him, Madison. And behind both of them, stepping slowly across the grass, came Kelly. They didn't have their usual expressions. No sarcasm. No slouched posture. Jake's hands were jammed in his hoodie pocket, shoulders tense like he was bracing for a blow. Madison clutched her phone like a talisman. Kelly looked 10 years older than she had the night before. Jake spoke first. We want to talk. No pretense. No, you have to. Just that. I stepped aside. We sat at the kitchen table. The same table I'd sanded, stained, and sealed 3 summers ago, while they all went on a beach trip without me because we didn't think you'd want to come. This time they came to my table. And they were quiet. I let the silence stretch. Let it press in. Let them feel what I'd felt for years. Then I spoke. I want you to listen. Not reply. Not interrupt. Just listen. Jake nodded. So did Madison. Even Kelly. So I told them. I told them what it felt like to be erased. What it felt like to spend 10 years investing everything you have into people who keep receipts but never give thanks. What it felt like to stand in the doorway of your own home and realize you're just a funding source. Just the man who signs the checks. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I told them how it chipped away at me. How every joke about not being the real dad. Every time they ran to Kelly to overturn a decision I'd made. Every cold shoulder and rolled eye and ignored request. It all built up until I couldn't see myself anymore. I was building a life for us, I said. And you were living in it like I didn't exist. Madison sniffled. I didn't look at her. Jake stared at the table. Kelly wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her shirt. Then I finished with the only truth that mattered. I'm not angry anymore, but I'm not going back. Jake spoke next. Quietly. I was being a dick. I get that now. I didn't see it then, but I see it now. I just thought. I don't know what I thought. Madison followed, voice cracking. I was just going along with him. I didn't mean to hurt you. I almost laughed, because meaning never mattered. Only the damage. But I nodded. Kelly spoke last. I let it happen. I saw it and I let it happen. I thought you'd always just keep showing up. I didn't realize you'd run out of reasons. I looked at her. Showing up isn't a guarantee. It's a choice. And I'm not making that choice blindly anymore. We didn't hug. There were no dramatic reconciliations. But they listened. For the first time in what felt like years, they really listened. We sat for nearly 2 hours. Nobody stormed out. Nobody raised their voice. It wasn't some magical fix. It was the beginning of a reckoning. When they left the table, nothing had been promised. No deals had been struck. But the power dynamic had shifted. And I wasn't invisible anymore. That night I slept again. Not because things were fixed, but because I finally believed they knew what they'd broken. We didn't fix everything in one night. That's not how these things work. This isn't a movie where people cry, hug, and then the credits roll over a smiling family on a couch. No. In real life, the damage lives in the walls. It echoes. It stains. But it was a start. The next morning, I made coffee like I used to. Black, 1 sugar. Kelly came into the kitchen. She didn't say good morning. Just stood across from me, holding her mug like it was a question she couldn't ask out loud. I said it for her. This house isn't going back to what it was. Her eyes dropped. I know. It doesn't survive on one person carrying everything. A pause. Also no. Then we rebuild. But this time on terms I can live with. She nodded. Not eager. Not desperate. Just honest. Jake came downstairs next. No hoodie. No headphones. Eyes tired, but clearer. He mumbled something about looking into part-time work. Said he could cover his gas now. I told him that was a good start. Madison texted me from school. I asked to switch to a different choir group. I'll pay for my own uniform. I don't want you to cover it. I replied, we'll talk, but I appreciate it. And Kelly? She started handling things. Little things at first. Taking the lead when Madison talked back. Saying, your stepfather asked you something, instead of letting silence answer for her. Making dinner one night and setting a plate in front of me first. A gesture that spoke louder than any apology. I stayed cautious, detached, but present. Because when you rebuild something, you don't lay bricks on top of rot. You scrape it clean. You test every piece. The first weekend after our talk, Jake asked if he could borrow the car. I told him it had been sold. He nodded. No complaints. No argument. Just said, I get it. He took the bus. The next time Madison wanted a ride to a friend's house, she knocked first. Said please. Said thank you. Small things. But small things are how you measure change. Kelly offered to split the grocery bill the next week. I let her. We weren't healed. We were wounded people learning how not to bleed on each other. I started working on the garage again. Something I hadn't touched in months. Used to be my space. My retreat. I cleaned it out, fixed the lighting, got my tools back in order. One evening, Jake came in while I was working on an old cabinet door. He didn't say anything at first. Just watched. Then, you used to fix everything. I didn't look up. Still do. Just not for free anymore. He nodded. Didn't argue. Picked up a screwdriver. Stood next to me. Said, what are we doing with this one? That was the moment I let my guard down. A little. We fixed it together. Not because I trusted him fully, but because trust has to be practiced like anything else. Weeks passed. The tension in the house didn't disappear. It just softened. Like a bruise fading. Still tender. But not swollen with pain. One night at dinner, Madison asked if we could go to a college tour next month. Said she wanted me to come too. Not just Kelly. I asked her why. She said, because it's your time too. You've always been there. Kelly squeezed my hand under the table. I didn't say anything. Just nodded. Jake got a job stocking shelves at a hardware store. First paycheck, he bought his own phone plan. Came home with the receipt. Left it on the counter like proof. Like a trophy. Kelly framed it. The shift didn't happen in grand gestures. It happened in the space between things. In who said goodnight. In who unloaded the dishwasher. In who paid for what and didn't expect applause. And I stayed vigilant. I kept the accounts closed. The payments frozen. not out of spite, but to let them feel the difference. To teach that respect doesn't come free. That access isn't automatic. Eventually, Kelly asked the question. So, are you coming back into the accounts? I shook my head. Not yet. She didn't push. Instead, she added her own card to the utility accounts, called the internet provider herself, took over the school billing notifications. That was what I needed to see. Responsibility shared, not handed off. We built new rules. In my home, disrespect has no place. If I ask something, I don't want to hear it twice. If I pay for something, it's because I chose to, not because they think I owe it. If someone crosses the line, they don't get to cry foul when the consequences land. Simple, clear, non-negotiable. Kelly agreed. Jake understood. Madison, surprisingly, followed fastest. Like maybe she'd been waiting all along for someone to draw boundaries firm enough to feel safe. And Tom? He never called. Not once. Not even to ask why the car vanished. Not to ask what happened. Jake said he texted a few times, short, awkward messages. One said, "You good?" That was it. Jake didn't reply. I asked him why. He said, "He doesn't really want to know. Not like you do." That one hit me harder than I expected. And I believed him. Still, I didn't reopen the floodgates. Because respect once lost has to be earned. Like credit. Like trust. And this time they were all paying in. So yes, I froze the accounts. Yes, I sold the car. Yes, I handed the title to his bio dad and walked away. That wasn't punishment. That was the wake-up call. And it worked. Because they finally saw the line. They finally saw me. I'm not the wallet. I'm not the backup. I'm not the guy who fills the silence between real family members. I'm a man who carried them, who fed them, who built a life around their needs. And now, I'm part of this family if they choose to treat me like it. But if not, I'll survive. Because I already know what it feels like to give everything and be treated like nothing. And I swore to myself, never again. So I ask you, was I wrong to shut it all down? Was I cruel to demand the very thing I'd given for a decade? Or was this the only way to teach them that love without respect isn't love at all? It's servitude? You tell me. Would you have stayed?